Welcome, everybody, to the Weekly Grind Podcast, episode number 103. I'm your host, Keith Fabry, with my co-host, IFBB Pro, Dr. Todd Lee. Todd, welcome back.
What's up?
All right, and with us tonight, we have with us the co-founder of Renaissance Periodization, Dr. Mike Isratel. Mike, welcome.
Guys, thank you so much for having me on.
Awesome, man. So I've been watching you on YouTube probably for the last year or so. On the Renaissance Periodization videos. You have a lot of good content as far as training, basically training circuits and how to periodize your training. And some of I love the videos where you take the power lifters and you put them through bodybuilding workowns. Those are my favorite because they literally are dying like 20 minutes in. Those are my favorite ones. So talk a little bit about yourself, your background and stuff, and how you came to be where you're at.
Well, you see, my parents met, and that's 9 months later. I'm just kidding. It wasn't the same day. Jesus. So yeah, I'm originally from Russia, and my family came here when I was 7 years old. I grew up around the Detroit area in Michigan, and I wrestled in school. And then to get stronger for wrestling, I started lifting weights in high school.
Sure.
And I started getting more jacked, and I was like, oh, I really like lifting weights. And then by the time I got to college, I started competing in powerlifting. And then in grad school, I started really falling in love with the idea of bodybuilding. I didn't really have a physique for it, but slowly but surely I added some muscle and got rid of some fat and then started to look pretty cool. And then at that point, it was all my passion. So I went into graduate school with this in mind, and I got a PhD in sport science from Dr. Mike Stone at East Tennessee State University, and that was really cool. I got to coach a bunch of athletes, became a college professor, and sort of right just before that, my friend Nick and I, we had jobs as personal trainers in New York, and we kind of realized a lot of people were getting ripped off, especially by diet coaches, just like nonsense BS. So we were writing diets and training programs for people, and we were tired of referring people to each other as just like, oh, my friend or colleague Nick. We started a company to basically be able to say like, oh, it's my coworker, and you can work with him on diet or me on training and so on and so forth. As we started to get more and more clients, we needed more help, and I recruited some graduate students that are now actually my lifelong friends and also sports scientists to help be coaches for our business. And at some point, people started asking a lot of questions of like, why do you guys do carbs like this? Why fats like that? Blah, blah, blah. So we figured, okay, we can't retype this in an email 600 times. So let's write a book. So we wrote a book through Juggernaut Training Systems, Chad Wesley Smith, The Renaissance Diet, first book. It was really awesome. During the writing of the book, I had to break down how to design a diet, basically from like a systematic perspective. And because I was teaching people how to design your own diet. And I got the idea that, we could actually do this either in an app or in templates. We tried to do it in templates. They were super crazy successful. Lots of people thought they wanted one. We replicated it in training. We did training templates. We published some training books. Company grew and grew and grew, and now we have a whole bunch of trainers, coaches working for us. Most of them have PhDs or world champion athletes and all crazy stuff like that. And now we have a diet app and a bunch of other digital products for training and a bunch more stuff in the works, tons of books. And now I'm on YouTube trying to sing the good word of RP, and we have a whole bunch of videos to make, and I have a timeline of videos that's years away from being me out of ideas. So that's been really cool. We've been reaching a lot of folks on YouTube. And I was competing in bodybuilding for a while now, but I absolutely sucked at it. And then recently I actually put like a decent physique up on stage, and ta-da, I took second in the Masters USA's in the super class as the shortest by like 1 foot super, I think. But I was really jacked, and I was actually the leanest super, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, I saw that you were at the Masters. You said, what did you weigh in at?
225.6.
You were barely a super then.
Yeah, I figured I just didn't care. I was just going to come in and try to look good.
Right.
So, did that.
Yeah, which is usually your best look, and most of the time the supers aren't in the greatest shape anyway. So,
exactly.
if you can come in peeled at the bottom of that class, you've got a really good shot of winning. So,
that's exactly it.
All right. You talk about, I know the main thing for you that you do is the training aspect now correctly with RP.
As opposed to what?
most of your videos are training related as far as
the videos. Yeah.
Yes.
We have diet videos, but the folks on YouTube seem to really be interested in training. And I don't want to say, I want to put too fine a point on this, but I kind of said everything about diet that I've ever wanted to say, maybe 95% of everything. I'm pretty good with dieting, but I'm really interested in training now at a personal level because there's a lot of ideas about training that people have out in the world, especially in bodybuilding, that are just really bad ideas. And it pisses me off that people look up to bodybuilders who don't know how to train. And I want to get the word out there and teach people how to train well so that they don't essentially just like replicate real stupid stuff and not get the same results because they're not on a boatload of drugs and they're not gifted genetically.
That's the main thing is that there's so many different training systems out there. And yes, different systems can work for different people, but really it's some of these genetically elite pros that literally can look at a weight and they're going to grow. And then you add drugs to the mix, they're going to grow a lot. You know, they can pretty much do about anything with weights and it's going to give them good results. Whereas Joe Blow, shit genetics, average person can do the same thing. And they're wondering why the hell is this not working for me? And the first thing they go to and realize is I'm just not taking enough drugs, which necessarily is not the problem. You just don't know how to train because Joe Blow, average genetic, and Mr. Elite genetics over here are two different playing fields naturally to begin with.
For sure.
And even a boatload of drugs doesn't work because you're training like shit. It doesn't make a difference. For
sure.
Right? So
I think there's a lot of assumptions that people make about people who are really jacked. And it's not like an assumption you would be really pissed about someone making. Like it's not some kind of intellectual massive flaw that you'd be like, well, you're just an idiot for ever thinking that. But like, I guess one of the assumptions is even just normal gym people, when they see someone who's jacked, they kind of just assume that person really knows something about how to train. I don't think they think like there's a basic foundational level of training that this person has clearly mastered, which is probably true. Like, to lift weights, to do that hard. When an exercise grows your bicep, you feel it in your bicep. And if you don't, it's not a bicep exercise. Like, that's the foundation of like, duh. And all the pros have that figured out. No one's doing rear delt flies and being like, it's a chest movement. They're like, what the hell? So they got that. But most people who look up to pros, they don't say, oh, okay, they have the basics down. They think, at least one, this is charitable interpretation, but they say at least one of the reasons why this pro is this big is because they know something special about training that I don't. And I need to find out what they know because that's going to give me maybe not all of their mass. Maybe I'm intelligent and thoughtful enough to realize genetics matter. Maybe I know about drugs and they matter. But I think, all that aside, they still should know something extra. And I don't know, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I've met a whole shitload of pros and seen a whole shitload of them train. Can I swear on this podcast?
You can cuss as much as you'd like. That gets us more views.
Yeah, like politics, religion, gear, we have no boundaries or morals.
Excellent. I'm going to fit right in. So, to do a nasty paraphrasing, of one of my favorite economists, Thomas Sowell. There's the political side. I covered that. It is by no means clear to me. It is by no means clear to me that pros, on average, know anything special at all with regard to training. And a lot of times, because of their elite genetics and their willingness and actually just ability to tolerate a lot of gear, they may know a little bit less than the average, like, intelligent, dedicated gym bro who's like thoughtful about the shit. And I've been to seminars where like thoughtful people who are like 5 years into training ask a pro, like, what do you think about supinated versus pronated curls? And the pro doesn't know what those terms mean. Like, and then when explained to them, they're like, I don't know. Yeah, I think both work. It's, if it works for you. And like, motherfucker, that's not an answer. But like, I think people are looking to, this is, again, I don't really mean this. It's just to illustrate something. But like, if you see a fucking dinosaur like wrecking the city with his tail and breathing fire, you're not going to be like, oh, no, that dinosaur really knows kinesiology and tail movements, and he also knows, thermonuclear generation because his breath is nuclear fire. Like, he's a nuclear physicist. Like, no, he's just a fucking stupid dinosaur that happens. Like, he doesn't know how the fucking atomic breath works. He just takes a fucking breath and shit blows up. So a lot of pro bodybuilders, pro athletes of any kind, are just motherfuckers with atomic breath. They don't know how the fuck it happens. They just do this, and they're fucking huge. And they're like, oh, I feel like dumbbell curls. Like, shut up. You don't know what the fuck you're saying. And a lot of people just look up to them. Now, here's the thing. There's tons of pros that do know their shit and really can offer insight. But just by looking at a guy's muscles, you can't tell which one he is. Not everyone's John Jewett. You know, like a lot of guys don't put any thought into the shit at all. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with that. If your shit is working and you're healthy and you're jacked and you don't have to think about it and your muscles grow, fucking kudos. The only problem was the motherfuckers look up to you and they think, this man knows something. Good luck. And then they do some bullshit routine that guy wrote or copy his program for 6 months. They have dick to show for it and they're fucking pissed. They should be pissed at themselves because they made the assumption that these people have a ton of knowledge. It may not be correct. I mean, it might be, a pro bodybuilder may know about as much about his body as a top race car driver knows about how to fix the fucking race car. Bro, that's what the pit crew is for. That's, that guy's coach. That's what he's for. He might not, he's just coach says do this and the guy does that. Like he might not know a whole lot and he might. So I'm just trying to throw some actual info out there to people so they don't get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, because I mean, you look at a situation where, like, Ronnie Coleman. Anybody who watched Ronnie Coleman train? Ronnie Coleman didn't do a whole lot right over his career, right? He just trained really fucking hard and really, really heavy, but he was going to grow regardless because of his elite genetics. And somebody who trains like Ronnie Coleman that just ends up broke down and hurt, but along the way, they're not growing because 800-pound deadlifts are doing absolutely nothing to grow their back whatsoever. But they think that they go online and they Google search Ronnie Coleman drug protocol. And then they start following that and they fuck themselves up even worse along the line because that's all fake too on there because you can't trust 90% of what you get online as far as that goes. So yeah, knowing how to train and the basics of training is key.
I got a real life example, and I can't think of his last name. It's Richard something or other. He was a bodybuilder in like 2004. I think he won the USA's or nationals overall. He was a light heavy. And Richard Jones. Yes. Okay. So Richard Jones, I remember reading an article. Dude, brilliant. Thank fucking God that you said that. I remember reading an article written by him in like Flex magazine because he got scooped up by Flex immediately. You guys are old enough to remember how shit worked back before Instagram and real magazines existed.
Turned pro as a light heavyweight. He was phenomenal physique.
It's just beautiful physique. And he was like, I'm gonna go, and that was he turned pro, I think 2003 or 2004, where it was right the year after Ronnie Coleman did his 242 to 287 transformation from 2002 to 2003 Olympia. Like that was when the revenge of Ronnie Coleman. Like he lost to Gunther Schlierkamp and like the GNC show strength, and he was like, "Fuck that! I'm never doing that shit again. Let's fucking gas it up." So Richard Jones was like, I'm gonna do like this Ronnie Coleman style training, like hard and heavy. I've been kind of like using like whatever like technique, blah blah blah. Like I'm going all in. And then precisely like 1 year later, he quit bodybuilding because he was like, I don't want to do this to myself. And it's fucking sad because maybe he quit bodybuilding for 50 different reasons that we're not discussing. But maybe one of those reasons in part was that he thought he had to like basically hammer his fucking knees and back into pulp to get huge. And if someone had just gotten to him and showed him like, here's how you can do an exercise, loading the muscle a ton, loading the joint very little, you can actually, any rep range between 5 and 30 reps works. And even if you never do sets of 15 or heavier again, you can get fucking jacked. If they showed him that and he added some quality size over the years, we could have been the fucking 225 on stage, same beautiful physique, even better lines. He could have been a fucking star. And but like he was like, to him, it was like, okay, Ronnie was the man of the hour. And there's something to be said for that. Cause like you guys have been around long enough to where, like, there's like the people everyone's talking about for a few months or a few years. And Ronnie was like, that was the Ronnie era. That was the peak of the Ronnie era because when he just came out, he was a genetic freak and everyone thought this was great. But 2003 Ronnie, that was like, what the fuck? I don't know if you guys remember checking those pictures.
What is that?
I literally I was on a date with my girlfriend at the time and I came home. I was actually at her house and we like went downstairs like, hey, I got to check something online. I refreshed to get those prejudging pictures on Flex magazine online. And because remember, they did Jay Cutler versus Gunther Schlierkamp versus Ronnie Coleman. It was supposed to be this trifecta of meeting of Godzilla, Mothra, and Rodan, or whatever the fuck monster is. And, one of the monsters, who knows what they are at this point. The giant turtle guy. In any case, it turned out that Jay looked okay. Gunther looked fine. Gamera, there you go. This fits like a glove. I'm just kidding. That's not an OG quote. So it should have been.
I do get acquitted.
There you go. That's right. So Ronnie, I remember looking at those pictures of Ronnie. I just started laughing. I couldn't stop laughing. because he had left everybody behind. And I remember they did a photo shoot a few months before. They were peak off season. Jay looked fluffy. Goudreau looked okay. Ronnie was 315 with clear veins and separations. And I was like, you motherfuckers better speed up the protocol, because what the fuck? And he just shut it all down. So for the next several years, training in many cases was like, well, what does your training look like on a scale of 0 to compare to Ronnie Coleman? And everyone's trying to drag up there. And he had a lot of great features of his training. He trained every muscle twice a week, which is probably a good idea for many people, especially intermediates. He did compound heavy basics, which was fucking sweet. No pansy fucking bullshit like we see a lot now. But like, you know, gee whiz, doubles and triples several weeks out from a show. I mean, first of all, let me be completely clear. At all is fucking stupid for a bodybuilder. If longevity is your goal, you don't want to tear your fucking pec off the bone.
Tell people that
3 weeks before the show or 5 weeks, I mean, it was just unthinkable. Like, people did it and they got hurt. And then, you know, like when Dorian was the shit, everyone tried HIIT. You know, like when Phil Heath was the shit, everyone was like, Phil Heath has amazing genetics. I don't know if anyone ever learned any training from Phil Heath, but nor does he really espouse it. That's kind of with Phil Heath. Forgive me if I'm mistaken, but Phil Heath doesn't try to like put methods or descriptions onto some shit. Like his company, until he sold it, was called like Gifted. It's something like apparel. It's like it is. It's like, okay, well, I can't really have your gifts. But the cool thing is because he never really tried to sell his gifts, you know, like.
Well, and he never did. He always gave credit to Honey. He's like, I just do what Honey tells me to do. This works for me. It may not work for you, but that's fine. You're you, and I'm me, and that's it.
You know what's trippy about Phil Heath too? Now that we're on the subject, I'd love to get your guys' take on it. Especially, I mean, he was a champion well into the Instagram era. He is not someone who posts updates and physique pics almost at all. He's like a ghost, which is kind of trippy. What do you guys think? Just like, sorry if I'm interviewing you out of place, but
fine.
What do you guys think about that? Like, is it just personal preference? Like, if you have an athlete you're coaching and he likes to do like, you know, tons of Instagram pics for the fans all the time, like getting sharper and sharper, or do you guys think there's like a real value in ghost prepping that like maybe we're missing? Is Instagram fucking that up? What do you guys think?
I think it depends on the person. Personally, myself, I don't like to post more than a few times a week. Personally, because I like to just kind of keep some things under the table as far as what I'm doing. And I feel like it's a fucking distraction sometimes because, you know, you got to post something and you're waiting for all the likes. And I can just see people like doing it and they're waiting and they're refresh. And it's like, I'll put something up and the phone will go away and I'll go off doing something for 2 hours and I'll come back and check it. And I don't even look to see who actually liked or comment. If there's a comment, I'll respond to it if I feel like I want to. I think with Phil, most of it was he couldn't play nice online, so he just decided to stop because he was constantly in arguments with people online with trolls. So that might have been a reason for it. There's some real value in it though, right? There's a lot of real value in a up and coming competitor or somebody who has good content like a John Jewett or so, like you mentioned, or something like that, posting frequently about things and putting out content where they can gain a following that can get them some business on it. But for 95% of the people out there on Instagram, it's just pure fucking shit. Yeah. And there's a 5% that have something good that everybody else can actually value from. But there's 95% of it is just fluff. It's just garbage for eye candy, and there's really no real value in any of it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like multiple motivations that are overlapping as to why to post progress pics. I mean, like some categories I can think of is 1, you are low self-esteem and you want people to like your body.
Easy.
2,
that's number 1.
You want to have girls, or if you're a girl boy, or if you're homosexual, same sex, then direct message you that they want you for one thing or another. 3 is you post content that's valuable, but you have to show credibility. Like no one's going to take your advice that you know how to look good naked if you don't.
Me. Yeah.
And then 4 is you wait until it's almost the show and you start throwing up incredible pictures out of nowhere to throw their cortisol up. They
That's
spill
me.
over and you murder them on stage. And so I think the ghost prepping value is if you're a serious competitor who isn't low self-esteem, doesn't need ass, and doesn't need money.
The doesn't need money part, my Jewish sensibilities just hurt at even hearing. I'm like, what? You would just walk over money in the road? Can't you bend down and pick it up? Yeah, no. Honestly, I think that was a fucking brilliant kind of like dissection of the matter. I'll add one more in, and this one's fucking lame, but I know it has value for me, so maybe it's something you guys can jive with. But I follow okay. I follow a bunch of bodybuilders because like I can't always access porn. I'm just kidding. I follow sometimes the Instagrams is gonna have to do.
It's
one
close.
hand on the swiper, one hand on the wiper. So what I do is I follow a lot of bodybuilders that I really like their physiques. And I just like when I scroll, just like I'm taking a dump, or it's like before training, I'm taking a dump. I take a lot of dumps. And it's just kind of motivational to see guys fucking doing their shit. Like Nick Walker. Nick Walker's training seems fine. Out of personal philosophy, I've never like interacted with him as a human being. Like I've said a few things here and there back and forth in real life, but like I don't know him. I don't follow him because I'm his friend. But like just seeing him with an arm pump, I'm just like, I'm trying to train arms right now. Like this is like and I don't think I'm gonna look like him. I'm never gonna look like him. But like just that, it's like mortals looking at gods kind of thing. It's like one can dream. And having that can be two things. One, it can be toxic as fuck because me with a full arm pump is never going to be like Nick Walker.
Sure.
So some people get negative on themselves, put the fucking social media down. But for me, it's mostly positive, where I'm like, if I get like an amazing quad pump, I don't think I look like Tom Platz. But if I scroll through Tom Platz's feed and I see his quads, it gets me itching to do the best for myself. You know what I mean? Do you guys feel that at all? Like that's maybe another valid reason to post is, you know, people look up to you to some extent and you're like, hey, this is a cool, most muscular I'm proud of. Maybe you motherfuckers could look at this and be like, damn, I'm going to go train chest. I don't know.
Yeah. So my Instagram feed is threefold.
Because you were, it's like you're saying, it's so funny. So I'm also from Metro Detroit. I'm also short as fuck. I'm also Jewish.
Bro, what are you talking about? I said I was. How many of those things did I admit to? These are rumors.
So I saw your most muscular when you were ready for the stage right before your most recent show, and had the same basic internal conflict as you have when you look at Nick Walker. Whereas on one hand you're motivated, on the other hand I'm never going to look like that, and so therefore. Whereas you don't see yourself that way, others do.
Yeah.
So it's the mirrors type of situation where you're a hall of mirrors and you're only looking in one direction.
Yeah. My Instagram is threefold. So it's people I know.
Actual human beings, you know. Right. That's like human the 10th of my Instagram.
Right. Yeah. People I like, where I just like what I see. Their content is good. It's
The Rock,
whatever.
Shit like that.
Right. I like them. And then people I follow because I want to learn something from them.
I thought you were going to say people I hate.
No, because if I don't like you, you have no room in my life. I'm not one of these people that hates somebody and has to watch everything they do because I hate them.
Yeah, that's fucking weird.
If I hate them, it's like blocked, done. I don't even need to know you exist because my life will be much better if I didn't even know that you existed. So
no negativity in this.
Right. I try not to worry about what other people I don't like are doing. But that being said, when it comes to me for what I put on there, it's mostly, and here's where you said that, you know, you're fucking with people's head. Most of my Instagram is going to be video content. There might be some other stuff on there like progress photos in the off season, but that's where they make the close friends thing. So you can just show the people that you really give two fucks about and actually value their opinion on a story feed. But most of my stuff on there is going to be some training video and that kind of stuff on there so that other people can see it. Because one, I coach other bodybuilders and competitors. So I want them to see what I'm doing so they get the correct way to do shit, the way I want them to do things on there as well. But also you're advertising for your services when you do that because, hey, this motherfucker actually might know what he's talking about, right? Look at him. But I'm not, that goes twofold. You've got the ones that put training content on there, but they're in a stringer and they're jacked all the time. And they've literally lumped 3 weeks worth of time together to get a year's worth of content.
Yeah.
They just keep posting all year because they got to look their best, because they only look like that for 3 weeks of the year. Me, I'll just throw it, I'm not wearing a hoodie or a t-shirt or something in the off season. I'm just showing you my whole off season. And as we get closer to the show, I'm still covered up until all of a sudden it's like 3 weeks out and it's like, bang, oh shit, there's a progress picture in front of you that is for everybody to see now.
Yeah.
Now here's Keith at 210, peeled and vascular, and he's giving you a few shots of his progress pictures. Oh, here's a video to go along with it. This is what I've been doing this off season to bring up this body part. This is what I've been doing, and you post there. So now that's good content. Plus, you're fucking with anybody that knows you're doing the show.
That's an extra mean-spirited thing at the end. I love it.
It is.
Oh, I
had my moments.
It's a competitive edge, is that somebody's emotional fortitude is a factor, that how many people get scared. And if you can use fear as a weapon, then it's an effective tool on and off stage.
So that's totally true. Right now, I'm actually in Orlando because Nationals is happening, and our friend Charlie is competing. And Charlie, P.S., looks fucking absurd, like ridiculous. But he was following a couple folks just to see what they were doing, this whole prep. And he's super solid, so it wasn't ever a problem. But Jared and I were like, dude, who gives a fuck? And he's like, oh, it's just curious. It's kind of cool. And I'm like sort of rooting for them and seeing everyone brings their A game. The two top guys he was following, Carlos Thomas Jr. I would say Carl's Jr. And can you guys tell I just finished a diet? And then there is Justin Shear. And Charlie was like, man, these guys, man, they're going to go 1 and 2 for sure. It turns out they didn't make the super cutoff. They made the heavy cutoff. So Justin Shear actually announced 2 weeks before. He was like, I'm a heavyweight. I'm not a super. And then Carlos Thomas apparently just made the supers. He just weighed in. Oh, sorry, supers. He made the heavies. Charlie's not in the heavies. He's a super. So I almost want to be like, so Charlie, like, how's that motivation now? These guys even in your class. Who the fuck is in your class even? I mean, he knows a few of the other guys.
Right.
But it's kind of cool. It never fucked with him. But to me, it was kind of like. It could have fucked with him.
Yeah.
But let's say there's an alternate universe in which he really was like sweating these guys.
Yeah.
In that alternate universe, as soon as they pulled out, this made a different weight class, he would feel kind of fucking like, what? I was sweating these motherfuckers that didn't show up. And I told him at the beginning of prep, like, all their people that you don't know, random bodybuilders, their post-progress pics, you guys have been around the sport long enough. Not everyone's a fucking saint. Not everyone even likes the sport. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but this is his own admission. Flex Wheeler said that his coach would have to physically restrain him from driving to McDonald's. Physically restrain him from driving to McDonald's the week before his show. Like, I'm not too worried about competing against a guy like that. He might beat me, but he didn't beat me. You feel me? Like, up here, like, nah. So
he used to find the wrappers underneath the front seat of his car all the time.
It's crazy. It's like, you send your coach updates. You're like, I don't know, diet's not really moving. Like, what diet, motherfucker? But like,
McDonald's.
Like, whatever I'm writing, you're not doing. But it's kind of a trip. People assume this constancy of the world, this linearity. Yeah. They assume like everyone's going to come in shape. Everyone's going to do the show who says, in my experience, a third of the guys drop out. A third of the guys miss their peak. A third of the guys are addicted to heroin and don't even bodybuild anymore. Right. And then you got the guys that come through, and then you got dark horses you never even thought of. Like, Charlie didn't make the fucking Bodybuilders Without Borders, like, 9 Instagram playing top supers. He's going to be in that fucking call out, though, tomorrow. And some guys are going to be like, what the fuck is that? Why the fuck?
Who's this guy? Yeah.
It's bullshit. Sure. And
that happens,
it happens regularly. So if you're a person who likes to be in the mix, it's good to remember these things, I think. Like, if you're a person who's competing and who likes to follow the other competitors, just remember nothing's guaranteed. Like, someone can always come and upset the apple cart, and also these guys could not come through. So if you follow it and it gives you like a little bit of like a boxer's kind of like, all right, we're going to tussle, this is fun. Hey, that's great. But if you get in your head about it, if you're worried about what the other guy's doing, also, it's not MMA. You don't get to punch him in the face. Like, Khabib and Conor could hate each other because they literally get to settle it. You're not settling
Right.
shit. You're in a fucking bikini in front of judges and a bunch of people in the audience who only came there to see their one grandson compete. They don't give a fuck about you. That's the
They don't
sport of
even know who you are.
bodybuilding. Like, there's no battle. Nobody's going to war. So, like, if you really get in your head about, I'm going to fuck this guy up, like, no, you're not. Bodybuilding is illegal to fuck anyone up. You just do this, and the judges go, okay, you win. Like, if that's motivation for you, sweet. Know what you're getting yourself into, I guess.
Right. So, yeah, with that being said, let's talk some training, because I really enjoy talking training. This is stuff
who invented minimum effective volume and maximum recoverable volume. That you're like, you are the Yoda of training, whether you realize perceived outside your own head or not. So,
well, thank you so much.
The biggest question for me is, what do you think about the big controversial topic of reps in reserve, TUT, and tempo? And I know that I know what you think, but I don't. Our listeners don't know what you think.
Yeah. You want me to just go down the list?
Yeah, go ahead.
So reps in reserve is just a way to try to see how far away from failure you are. And you can just not use them. You could go to failure all the time, and that's cool. But we know from some good research and a lot of practical experience that training to failure, true failure, every single set is a really, really fatiguing, and it's really stimulative too. So it'll get you jacked, but makes you real tired and beats you up a lot. So you have to deload and back off more often. If you train at an average of like 2 reps in reserve, then it turns out on average over the course of a mesocycle, you get almost the same stimulus as going to failure, but you actually get less fatigue substantially. There's an emotional fatigue that carries over when you really like get into like a machine press and you're like, everything, this set is everything. Yeah, it'll stimulate muscle growth, but holy fuck, it drains you. I mean, you can only do that so many times. If you do 2 reps in reserve and you just try to beat last week's reps by 1 rep or add 5 pounds and get the same reps, and you just repeat that week after week after week, sooner or later you hit failure anyway, just trying to match your numbers. But a lot of that training for weeks has been submaximal, highly effective. It didn't drain the fuck out of you. So you could string together 6 good weeks of progression versus 3 and needing to deload. So in my view, you can do pretty far from failure and have to do more volume to make up for it or have longer progressions. You can go real close to failure, fail all the time, have shorter progressions or do less volume. I think for most people, the beneficial ground mostly exists in that 3, 2, 1 reps in reserve zone. So I start all my mesocycles at 3 or 4 reps in reserve. I add 5 pounds and or a rep until I hit failure and I can't match my reps, and then I'm like, it's fucking deload time. So that's the RIR.
I think most people train, they don't realize that when they think they're training to failure, they're really training at a 1 RIR anyway.
or 3, because they're just quit. They're like, this is hard.
Right.
Fuck that.
Oh, it's starting to get hurt. It's starting to hurt a little bit. We must be failing. Well, no, you probably could string together 2 more reps that are not going to be as explosive or perfect as reps 6, 7, and 8 were, but 9 and 10, you're probably going to get more out of that 9 and 10 because it's really fucking hard, but you really could fail at 11. 11, yes. When I say failure, for me, I can't get the bar to budge on my own anymore. It's either coming back or somebody's got to help me get that's failure to me, right? That's when you've hit true actual failure. Beyond failure would be, that's
somebody's
force reps, negatives, somebody, we're drop setting or something, or we're training with a rest pause. That's what we've hit beyond failure type, because you've already failed once. Most people, they get to positive failure in a rep where they get to, okay, we're done. That's really 1 IRR, because you probably could get 1 more rep or a half a rep out of that too. Now you've actually gone to failure.
Yeah.
Right.
So when a lot of guys say, failure training works great for me, it's really 1 or 2 RIR training that's working great for them.
Exactly.
Just call it failure because they're not training hard enough. Yeah.
Right.
My definition of failure is if the reps quality decreases, and that could be form or that could be velocity. So if I'm going to be doing explosive concentrics, if that explosion is more like a whimper, then to me that you've now failed to match the quality of the preceding rep. And you're now into a gray area of quality. That is low quality.
That's especially true when applied to like athletic context. So you're actually taking a grand view. Like if I'm doing box jumps to failure means my like jumping mechanics suck. It doesn't mean I can't get on the box by any means necessary. Like that'd be really fucking stupid. Or like sprints to failure. Like nobody sprints to failure. You consider it a done workout when your last velocity recording was like 90% or 89% of your peak velocity. You're like, well, we're not here training sprints anymore. We're going to be running, but that's training totally different pathways. But I think for me, to get real specific in the context of muscle growth training, failure is technical failure. So when you can no longer lift the weight concentrically, move it on your own with good technique. Because if you have to do this and it goes, it's like, hey, how many benches was that? They're like 10. It was like, no, it was 9 benches and one something else that was fucking stupid and you should have done it.
You were using all rear delt, yeah, or all front delt to get it up.
All anything, your hips or whatever. Yeah. The next topic was time under tension.
Yep.
Correct. So technically speaking, your muscles can't count reps. They generally produce tension for a certain amount of time, and that sum total amount of tension produced over time, the greater the time, the greater the tension, the more the molecular signaling pathways that actually cause growth are just turned on. It's like a dimmer switch, and it's just turned on more and more and more. So in that sense, when people say it's all about TUT, it's all about time under tension, they're not completely wrong, because exposing muscle to a huge amount of tension for longer and longer and longer is what causes hypertrophic mechanisms to activate, and they scale. The more they activate, up until a point, the more time you place the muscle under tension, the more it grows. However, time under tension from that theoretical perspective is super cool and makes a lot of sense. It can be abused, and it almost always is when motherfuckers are trying to take shortcuts. So they'll do some stupid technique where they're just like right here and they're doing dumbbells like this and they're barely moving at all. And someone's like, dude, what are you doing? And they're like, TUT, bro, time under tension. That's nice. Certainly those muscles are under tension for the amount of time. However, if you look at the research on how much muscle growth isometrics cause, it's not as much as concentrics and eccentrics. Right. In addition to that, especially long muscle lengths, full range of motion training works better than partials. Also, if you want to count your progression and say, okay, I got 10 reps last week, got 11 this week, I don't know how the fuck you do that with TUT. It's something you just decide to quit. So from progression tracking, from a full range of motion and putting the muscle through using all of its motor units instead of just some when you're over here, and from proper technique and everything, and the fact that concentrics and eccentrics grow tons more muscle than just isometrics, you can't just use time under tension as an excuse to get under some dumbbells or barbells and just do this like convulsion bullshit with no range of motion. So if we say, okay, time under tension is important, but the way we're going to proxy how much time we spend under tension is how many sets and reps we do with proper cadence, then all of a sudden we get all the benefits of TUT, but because we say they're proper sets and reps, we get all the benefits of range of motion, full muscle activation, eccentric, concentric phase, and that way we're just doing good fucking training. So when someone says, look, time under tension is fundamentally what causes growth, agreed. But when they use time under tension to get away from the ranges of motion that are proper, then I'm like, look, motherfucker, time under tension is just some scientific bullshit you found out yesterday so you could justify your bitch ass having to not squat all the way down. Like, you were going to use any justification you could or no justification at all. You were never going to squat low because you're a fucking pussy, and that's your shit. So you don't have to say TUT, just squat all the way down, goddammit, and you'll get fucking huge. You could say anything or nothing at all after that. But if you got to say TUT to justify bullshit training, sweet, you're the fucking man. TUT it is, bro. Dorian had it right. I don't know, whatever meme you want to insert into that shit.
Well, what's funny is you just, how about you try posing, and then you got your isometric contraction for, and you hold your
attention
seconds, and next week you hold your poses for 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And next week
you're going to get huge.
Progressive resistance and isometric time under tension training. You just don't call it posing.
Think about this. It's perfect specificity too, because you're literally training for exactly the thing you're going to be doing, which is posing. Did you guys, did we just start a new system of training, the posing system? You got training, just pose all the time.
You were saying that with the time under tension, and you're right. It just, I mean, theoretically, it is correct that putting a muscle under tension for longer periods of time is going to help it grow. But here's the problem with that: is people misconstrue that. They still don't load the muscle. They don't put enough tension on it to actually matter. It also matters what muscle fibers you're actually tapping into when you do that. If we're typing into all type 1 fibers because you got a 20-pound fucking dumbbell that you're trying to do presses with, Sure, but those are also the smallest fibers that the muscle has, and the growth is going to be very extremely limited in how big they can get. You want to get muscle to grow, you need to tap into type 2 fibers, which means you need to actually put it under a load that it's not used to. You still have to put it under a load and under enough tension so that the time under that tension makes the muscle grow. And I think people miss, like you said, with this, that's great if you've already done full range and failed, and now we're just trying to fatigue that muscle just a little bit more and train a little past failure. Sure, that's a great technique to use every now and again, but just doing this bullshit right here, if this is your entire range of motion is moving the bar that far, and you're only doing it with 50% of the load that you should be using, you're not going to get it. You're going to be very limited in what you're going to grow.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of TUT for not a lot of good reason.
Right, with no substance.
A subcategory, which is Brad Schoenfeld's work, showing that 30% of a 1 rep max is effective if taken to failure, versus, let's say, 80%, which was also in the same study to be considered to be as effective. I'm sure you have an opinion about using 30% versus 80% and anything in between.
I do, and I think that at least in a short and medium term, weeks and months, training close to 30% 1RM is going to produce very similar, if not identical, results for muscle growth. That is, if you're training all the way, to failure with 80% 1RM. However, there are two things there. One, we're not sure if it produces the same amount of long-term hypertrophy. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Another problem is training very close to failure with 30% of your 1 rep max is so fucking painful and difficult that the people in that study that did it, they have the benefit of having researchers literally yell at them every set, push them into crazy psychotic exertions. Almost all these studies, they just train a few muscle groups, not the whole body. It's like 3 days a week. If you have to train your whole body and motivate yourself, the pain of getting close to failure on a 30% 1RM lift is awful. The acid accumulation in your muscles is terrible. It's the fucking worst. It's not a sustainable way of training for many people. So if most people, especially the ones that use excuses like TUT, when they say, oh, it's just time under tension, no big deal, they'll take a 30 RM weight and they'll stop 5 reps short of failure, which means they get almost, very small fraction of potential benefit, because most of that benefit is going to come in those last few reps when the faster fibers really start to turn out even more. Now, they're on the whole time, they're getting some stimulus, but it's just not the same. Yeah. So if you really want to train with much lighter weights and say time under tension, you had better be getting close to failure on those light weights. If you're not, you can say anything you want in this world, but it might not actually be like you're not getting the hypertrophy that you think you're getting, because someone can ask you a simple question. Is your training ultra challenging? If the answer is yes, you're doing mostly everything you can to grow. If the answer is like, then, you can say TUT all you want, but you're not going to get very jacked doing it.
The last question was the tempo, how you feel about the specific cadence. Like, let's say a 4-second eccentric, 2-second contraction, 2-second stretch, a 1 over infinity concentric phase.
Yeah. So how do I answer this best? There's a good body of literature, again, summarized by the great Brad Schoenfeld, that shows that anything between roughly around 9 seconds of total rep time is fine. So 3-second eccentric, 3-second pause at the bottom, 3-second concentric, added together is 9 seconds. That's totally fine. And if your concentric is a little longer and eccentric and pause are shorter, that's probably totally fine. The real reason that's probably totally fine is to get a decent number of reps, let's say 10 reps, 9 seconds each rep. The load is going to be a load you can lift through a full range of motion for 90 seconds straight, which is that's a lot of seconds. I mean, that's a minute and a half. Most of my best hypertrophy sets take between 30 seconds and a minute and a half. And a minute and a half's on the very long end, which makes sense that if you're lifting a weight you can lift for 2 minutes straight, like if you're doing 18-second eccentrics, it's not the 18-second eccentric that's the problem. It's the fact that you are lifting a weight that is so light that it's probably less than 30% of your 1RM, and then you're not going to get the best growth. That being said, that's the first level of analysis. The second level is a bit deeper and a bit better. It is this. Don't do anything stupid like using way too light of weights and thus super crazy eccentric and concentric, 12 seconds per rep. Now that we know not to do that, we can go back into this range of 3 seconds or 2 seconds and 9 seconds and see, well, where is good here? And that's what comes down to a couple of things. One, if you completely let the eccentric drop in your eccentric phase isn't a second, it's less, you don't have a whole lot of muscle activation, you're missing a very productive part of the movement. It's been shown, at least in animal data, that isometric, concentric, and eccentric, the muscle growth is slightly different in the pathways that it uses to grow. So missing a whole phase is probably fucking stupid. Missing the eccentric phase, if I had to pick one phase that probably grew a little bit more muscle than the others, it's the eccentric phase. It's the slow lowering. And what are most guys really concerned about? How many reps can I get with 100-pound dumbbells? Well, they miss the eccentric phase altogether because they're doing it like CrossFitters. The thing is, CrossFitters are literally judged in their sport by how many reps they can do with hundreds. They're doing it right. They don't need an eccentric phase. Mr. Bodybuilder over here needs that eccentric phase to get his best growth. So I would say, if you're controlling the eccentric, it can still be a second, but it's like that second where you're slowing down the weight. You can feel it in the muscles. You're doing a good job. So the tempo, if you control the eccentric, if you take a slight pause, there's pluses and minuses. Sometimes it can let you rearrange your technique. Sometimes if you pause at the bottom, you get more time under a big stretch, which is really stimulative, and it can keep you safer. Because if you a lot of guys say barbell benching fucks with my shoulders, I don't want to tear a pec. Start pausing your benches for 2 seconds. They're like, well, I can't lift as much weight. Well, no shit. You think it wasn't the weight that was hurting you, dumb motherfucker? And all of a sudden they're lifting a lot less weight, but they're pausing every rep, and they're like, dude, chest is fucking being blown up for barbell bench, and my shoulders aren't hurt. Like, yeah, because your shoulders are hurting from you doing 400, not 315. You should have never been doing 400 because you're not a fucking power lifter. So sometimes we could do the concentrics and pauses. Some guys like to do a fast concentric. That research has been studied pretty well. There's no definitive answer how fast concentrics grow more muscle than slow ones, which is to say in some individuals there might be an advantage. Overall, there may be an advantage. We just know it's not massive. Like if you see a guy doing pretty slow concentrics, you're not going to look at him and be like, idiot, he's not growing any muscle. You could be like, what he's doing probably works pretty well. What I like to do by default is I like to control every eccentric for like 2 or 3 seconds usually, but not always. Depends on the movement too. 2 or 3 second eccentric on a bicep curl is forever. 2 or 3 second eccentric on a squat could be like not enough, because there's a lot of distance you're covering.
Yeah.
So I like to control the eccentric generally 2 to 3 seconds, depending on the movement. I like to usually take a pause, but not always, especially if it's an exercise like for quads or for chest, something that tears. I like to take a fucking pause because I like to reduce the load and get the good stretch instead of bouncing out and fucking my shit up. And then I like to generally either cap my concentric speed at a certain speed just for good technique or do as high of a velocity as I can. It depends on the movement. Like for pull downs, I like to do a high velocity because I won't be able to touch my chest to count how many reps I'm doing unless I really pull it down hard. Because if you pull the pull down here, mechanically it's not leveraged well here. You're like, I can't go anymore. But if you start out with a good velocity, you can really do it. Same with hamstring curls. But, with something like Smith machine bench pressing, I don't think there's a huge upside with me throwing the fucking bar off my chest. I certainly don't want to get hurt. So what I'll do is all of my concentric reps will look the same because I'm capping it at a certain velocity. And then when I get really, really close to failure, they start to slow down for like a rep or two. Because I was getting close to failure that whole time, but you couldn't see it in the velocity because I intentionally capped the velocity submaximal. So that's kind of my approach. But generally speaking, I'd say is don't overthink tempo as long as you're milking the eccentric and staying safe and not doing anything wacky like doing a 9-second concentric. It's all good answers for what works for you.
Yep.
Got it. So it factors into time under tension. So the big limiter on time under tension is you need reps to be able to have progressive resistance. Otherwise, you really can't progress time under tension. Likewise, my experience with very strict tempo is you're so focused on concentrating on the tempo, you're not concentrating on the lift, you're not feeling the muscle.
The fact that you said that, I'm really thankful you said that because it needs to be heard. It's not something I've spoken a lot at length about, but it's one of the million things in the practice that pisses me off at least a little. It's not so common right now in bodybuilding. It's real common in powerlifting. People think there's some magic to these tempo things. Like, they'll see me do bent rows and they're like, Dr. Mike, are you doing a 2-1-1 tempo? I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? What? And they're like, okay, it's concentric, isometric, eccentric, got it. And I'm like, no, man, I don't count seconds. I fucking, when I do bent rows, I fucking control the eccentric in a big ass stretch, pull nice and hard to touch my tummy, and repeat. That's it. How many fucking seconds that takes? Like you said, I see a lot of guys getting carried away with counting shit. And a lot of guys are, man, another thing is people are like, what cues do you use for stiff-legged deadlifts? And I'm like, tummy out, chest up, butt back, knees straight. And they're like, okay, what other cues? Because I'm trying to think about it when I do it. And I'm like, up, 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 up. You can use any cues you want. I gave you the 3 or 4 most simple ones. After you know the cues, not think about them, you know what they mean. Like, I know chest up means this. It doesn't mean this. I know what the cues mean. I know what butt back means. I know what straight knees are. You don't think about cues anymore. You think about, am I feeling my fucking hamstrings get stretched and torn apart at the bottom? If the answer is no, all the cues you're doing are either wrong or not enough. If you lift your chest more and you're like, oh shit, I feel my hams. That's what we're talking about. People get too carried away with counting specific tempos, really on the word use of a specific cue. It's all in the spirit of the thing. And the thing is, are you feeling a shitload of tension and stretch and metabolite throughput through the target muscle? Mm-hmm. Because if you show me you doing an exercise, I'm like, that's an interesting way to do that. I'll ask you just one question, 2 questions. 1, do you feel that in your pecs? And 2, how does it feel on your joints? And if you're like, dude, my joints feel amazing and I get the fucking gnarliest pec burn and pump ever, what am I going to say? That you're
Keep
wrong?
Doing it.
Keep doing it. Now, I could say, hey, try it this other way and see if it's even better. Maybe I'm right. But I sure as hell don't have a problem with it. The problem I have, and I'm sure you guys see this too, is you go to gyms anywhere in the world, and there's people working out, and you know for a fact they don't feel shit anywhere. And they're like, hey, what do you think of my technique? And you're like, well, externally it looks okay, but let me give you a couple tips and try to really feel your back open and close. And they're like, oh, does this mean I haven't grown my back as much as I could have in this last years? Like, yes, that is correct answer.
Yeah. I see that a lot with people who squat, especially in bench press. Those are the 2 biggest ones where I see that, where you look at them and it's like, okay, there is absolutely zero load on a muscle anywhere. This is all joint. You've got to just be wrecked at all points in time of trying to do this. And it'll be exactly what you said, where they're using more inertia than they're using actual muscle, muscle tension to actually grow the muscle. And it's like the bench press, they're bouncing out of the bottom, right?
Oh, yeah.
Bouncing off their chest. And they wonder why their fucking elbows and their shoulders hurt all the time. Or in a squat, my favorite one, where they literally just fall to the bottom.
Oh my God.
They fall to the bottom of the point where their hamstrings and their ass touch each other, and then they literally bounce off the bottom out. And I'm like, your knees are fucked. Your hips are fucked.
Yeah.
Like,
well, also like your quads, at least you could get some quad growth out of it, but you're literally missing the most important part. Like, another thing to me that jumps out is when people do like hack squats and they intentionally cut the range of motion. I'm like, have you ever done a hack squat to the point where everything touches at the bottom and you physically feel your quads? Like, you've hit quote unquote bottom, you let your hips sink a little further and the front top of your quads physically feels like it's being pulled apart.
Stretching. Like, yeah. Where
do you think growth comes from? Why would you miss out on that part of it? And a lot of thing is, you can't hack squat a lot if you start sinking them in. You got to, I hack squat 6 plates. Now you hack squat 4 plates, you dumb asshole. And then when you start controlling the eccentric, like you were talking about, instead of folding into the squat, you lower slowly and you push your knees forward gently so that the quads take the load the whole time. Now you're using 3 plates. Mm-hmm. Oh, shit. Good news. 3 plates isn't going to fuck your shit up. If you've been surviving 6 plates, your joints are going to be great forever. Yeah. And also, if you physically tell me, dude, I actually can feel my quads more on this. Well, guess what? You're getting at least the same quad hypertrophy as you do from 6 plates, from 3 plates. So then we only have one thing left on the table before you say, this is actually the best way to train. It is, well, I don't feel like 3 plates is something that impresses who? You, other guys on fucking Instagram, hoes. Who doesn't talk about what you lift on a machine at all? So it's just ego.
You using 3 less plates and doing it the proper way created more mechanical tension, which means more growth. That's
You're welcome.
You're
welcome. Put on this exact thing. Today, I saw my quads in a particular mirror that I haven't seen in a while, and I was like, God damn, I actually have like Keith's quad sweep. And it's like the biggest change is instead of 9 plates on the hack squat bouncing, I'm actually 3-4 plates on the hack squat, and I'll pause for 2 seconds.
Oh.
And then come up a 4-second eccentric, pause for 2 seconds at the bottom. And then it's an infinite rest pause where you do rest pauses until you can't get a single rep. And I remember like my first time I did it, I got 1 set and 1 extra set, like 6 reps on the extra set, and threw up for like half an hour. And then the second time I got an 8-minute set. I was in there for 8 minutes.
Did your feet hurt after that?
What actually happens is I start regenerating ATP faster. So I go like 10 reps, 6 reps, 5 reps, 4 reps, 4 reps, 5 reps, 6 reps. I'm like, well, I'm gonna be for all fucking day. I got the rest of my life to train, you know.
How big of a pump did you get from that?
I think I sweated it out. I think I dehydrated faster than I pumped. But it's, you know, you wring your shirt out. But it's one of those things where training like a pussy actually works really well. And, you know, like I'm sleeping 12 to 15 hours sometimes after those leg days.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Tell me you wake up to eat at least one of those.
No, I don't. And that's part of the problem is I have 5,000 calories a day I have to eat. It's very hard to get it in because it's all clean food.
Because you're eating every hour.
I just sit there. Like this bowl, I filled it to the top.
I saw that.
Crispy rice, and then I poured in water and whey protein, basically. So it's like 75 grams of protein and 200 carbs.
You're really selling the lifestyle here.
Right. So when you're talking with the hack squat there, right, and sinking it all the way down, and I've actually shown this to people and actually had the gym, one of the gyms that I train at, I had them build a platform for the hack squat that sits on. So the plate is like this. It sits on like this, so that I can get my toes or just the only thing that's touching the original, and my feet are flat, just so I can get my knees all the way forward.
Yes.
And I had to warn some people. I was like, that's a great thing to do, but you're gonna, whatever you use,
you're gonna die.
Take at least 80% of the weight off of what you normally use. And I promise you, your quads will never hurt worse than they do. And the further up the platform you can get you can get your feet on this extension, the better off you're going to be. And your knees are you would think they're going to cause a lot more shear, but because the load is going to have to be a lot less, it's not going to hurt. And you're literally it's almost like doing, if you do them correctly, it's like doing the Tom Platz sissy squat, hack squat, because that's how I had to make it, because I gave him the angles and everything and the disc that I needed to in order to do, because I used to just stack plates up on the bottom of it and to get my feet on an incline there, so I could just get my toes down and do hack squats. So I had to make the platform and put grading and stuff on it, so you would, the no slip, so your feet couldn't slide off of it. And I'll tell you what, I'll come back to that every couple of weeks and do that. And when I do, it's count to 4 in your head, basically during your warm up, so you know the tempo that you want to hit. That's where the counting comes in. Do it on your warm ups, where it doesn't matter. Right? You're just trying to get everything. Then you gotta get an idea, how slow do I need to descend on this set? That's I'm getting in the.
It becomes natural rhythm.
Right. Get down so I'm about 4 count to the bottom. Hold that stretch until under stretch load until it becomes excruciating, and then explode with everything you have back out. Go ahead and try to get 6 reps like that. Have fun.
Yeah, it's awful.
It's a 45-second set under a good amount of load. It's still, but I think people miss the boat on stretch loading a muscle. a muscle under tension, when it's in a fully lengthened position under load, is going to have to generate a lot more force to come back out of that to shorten back up again.
It's also miserable. Like intuitively, if you knew nothing about the science, you'd be like, I don't know, man, this hurts so goddamn much. It's got to be doing something.
Right.
And it's not even like it hurts like the joint or it hurts your soul. It hurts your soul too, but
it hurts your soul.
It hurts the fucking muscle. Like all the bullshit like training we do when we get pros on our YouTube and we run them through workouts. You know, I've never heard someone be like, yeah, this is pretty good. We usually teach them all these techniques and they look at us after like 2 sets of hack squats or leg presses and they're like, I'm like, I do a joke question, which I know is a joke. I'm like, do you feel that in your quads? They're like, what? I'm throwing up blood from my quads right now. I'm so pumped I can't get into this machine anymore. What do you think? And I'm like, I knew you felt it in your quads. I just want to make sure. Because at the end of the day, whatever kind of training you're into, if you have a lot of joint stress and your target muscle doesn't seem beat up, you got to ask the question of what the fuck you're doing. And that's the thing that where individualization comes into play. Like, like barbell curls. Guys will be like, barbell curls is a secret to size. Like, what if just my wrists hurt when I do them? What are you going to say? Like, I don't get size anymore? What if I try an easy curl bar? And like, then my wrists don't hurt. Then I can curl and my muscles feel great. My wrists feel okay. Are you going to say like, no, man, fuck that? Like, I remember for a while until I got so big that I actually can't grab an easy curl bar and do rows with anymore. When I used to do underhand easy curl rows, people would be like, oh man, that's Dorian's shit. Like, why don't you do them with a straight bar like Dorian did? And I just like, don't want to insult Dorian Yates, but I want to be like, who the fuck has the wrist mobility to do underhand straight bar curls? Like, he's got a goddamn gift from God to do that shit. Why the fuck would you do that?
He also tore his bicep doing it.
Right. Oops.
That's why he tore his bicep and had to retire in 97.
Yeah. Well, there's that lesson, right? But it's just like, and people are so worried about the external stuff. Like, what do you do this? What about that? What's the right technique? Look, if you can feel your muscles stretching painfully, filling with blood, getting a ton of acid in it, feel the tension, and afterwards, every set you do, you get a bigger and bigger pump. Man, that can't be too wrong of an answer.
No.
It can't be too wrong. And then like people get, wigged out on the particulars. Here's another thing that pisses me off. I'll do one mesocycle of something, like 5 weeks of training, and every Wednesday I do a straight bar pull down. And some motherfucker will always comment, it's all in good fun, we're just having fun, I'm not really pissed at this person, but they'll be like, so I noticed you prefer the straight bar over insert whatever favorite bar they like. What's the reasoning for that? And I'm like, what the fuck, what do you mean prefer? Like, I just did it for 5 weeks. And then the next week, just randomly, I'll do the whatever mag grip bar that they seem to like. And they're like, hey, how you liking those mag grips? I'm like, motherfucker, I'm 37 years old. I've been around for 15 fucking years of mag grips. I used them a trillion times. I didn't just discover the shit. It's crazy how much people think like the one thing they see one fucking Instagram video of you doing or you training for 5 weeks, like that's the answer. Can you imagine? Like, this is the same kind of questions we get from like people when we go out to eat. Like, you guys have been out to eat with regular people, like your wives or whatever, invite their friends, and that you order pasta. It's like a cheat meal. And they're like, so pasta, that's the thing, that's how you get big. Like, bitch, you see me eat one meal. This is clearly the answer. Like, it's like, what are you talking about? Like you see a race car driver wiping his tires right to left, and you're like, that's the right to left. That's how the car is fast. What? Like, I didn't even know it was wiping right to left. It could have been left to right. I'm not even paying attention. I'm listening to music. Right. It doesn't matter which way you wipe. So it's kind of crazy. People get caught in on this like real minute bullshit. And I totally get it. It's a fair question. But the answer has to be like, hey, there's this thing. There's a general exercise selection pool, which is good exercises. You take that and you filter it through your individual needs at the time and individual limitations. Mm-hmm. Once you do that, you still have a bunch of exercises that are valid. And then that's just variation. It's like, well, do you eat steak, chicken? Do you eat pasta or rice? Like, well, I eat both. I eat sometimes mixed together. It's all right answers. Then there's not like, can you imagine if like in nutrition it worked the same way as people think it does in training? You like look at Phil Heath's physique, you're like, that's a rice physique, bro. Some other guy comes out fat, he's like, too much pasta. That's what did it. And like, what? Like, that's not a thing. There's tons of variance, tons of right answers. If your muscles aren't getting stimulated, if your joints aren't getting fucked up, you're probably onto the right shit. It might not be the optimal shit, but it's not that far off.
No. At that point, you take what you're doing and you fine tune it to what has already been working for you, maybe to stimulate a 1% of extra growth throughout the entire year. Whereas, hey, like you said, if using a straight bar has been good for you, but you realize that when you turn your hands inward, you get more tension on the lats than less on the bicep, and you like it, then fucking keep doing it.
Yeah, I don't have to tell you it's approved or whatever. Like,
Right.
and that's the thing. Like, some exercises people say, oh, well, this exercise doesn't actually train that muscle group. And someone will respond like, why does that one muscle group pump up like crazy for me and get sore? That's being trained. I don't know what to fucking tell you. That's being trained. Like,
your body
someone's
type and
like,
the way it reacts through that range of motion.
Right. If someone's like, well, my calves get sore hack squatting, do you think they're growing? I'll be like, yes.
Yeah, they are.
When does something get consistently sore and actually recovers and it does not grow? I'm not aware of that sort of thing. And as a matter of fact, people who have small muscle groups that don't tend to respond well probably have trouble getting them sore. Do you guys ever notice that? Like, precisely the muscle groups in your body that you want to bring up but are stubborn, it takes a million sets to get them to feel fucking anything. You're like, my rear delts or whatever, as an example. My rear delts are fine, but like, people have trouble with rear delts. Like, I can't get a pump. I can't feel tension in them. I can't fucking get sore. Like, that's not a good deal. You know, like, you got to find some exercises that hit you some way, check some of those boxes, then you'll start growing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's most prevalent with people with their limbs, right? With their legs and with their arms. And a lot of time they end up they feel it someplace else, like in the joint, and they don't actually feel it in the muscle somewhere. And it's just the way they're loading it and the type of, and the amount of load that they're using, that they can't actually focus in on using the muscle instead. And a lot of times too, there might be some injuries involved, right? Look, if you've got fucked up shoulders, doing a bench press on a certain angle might not be the way. You have to find the correct angle to actually be able to stimulate the pec. Otherwise, it's going to continually hit you in the joint. You're going to feel the front delt. You're going to feel the triceps going to take over, because it's making up for, the fact that your shoulder isn't actually able to stabilize the load, and the tricep takes over. Well, you got big fucking triceps, but you got a little pigeon chest like this.
100%. The worst is when guys who have been hurt keep trying to come back like moths to the light to movements that they used to do before they got hurt, and it always just re-hurts them. And they're like, dude, in powerlifting, I get it. If you can't low bar squat, like, you're fucking done, because that's the whole goddamn sport. It's a third of the sport. In bodybuilding, the judges will never look at your legs and be like, he doesn't do squats. Like, mark it off. If your legs look good, they don't care. So if you find a way, it's 10 other machines in the gym, and you get unbelievable quad workouts, but you haven't been squatting lately, and you're like, oh man, I need to squat. Like, all right, go ahead, break in half. And this is coming from me. I love squatting. Squatting fits my body incredibly well. But like, if an exercise doesn't fit, there's so many other options. Stop beating yourself up with this idea of must-have exercises. Like, big legs, you got to squat, like, or hack squat, or leg press, or lunges. There's like a ton of other answers. Now, squatting sure helps. But if the trade-off for you is like every time you squat, you get a fucking re-herniated spinal disc and you're in bed for 3 weeks, what the fuck are you doing? Stop doing shit like that. People do that all the time.
Yeah, I found out a long time ago, after I got to a certain point, squatting didn't load my quads anymore the way I wanted to, just doing a regular, high bar squat, that I needed to either do a front squat, which, now I'm limited in how much load I can use because it's choking the piss out of me.
Yes. Fucking up your shoulders. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've torn this rotator cuff and I've torn this pec. So that's not an option anymore. But a safety bar squat works really, really well, because it sits out in front of me and naturally loads me towards the front. Yep. And then if I lean forward even further and put my hands on the rack for balance, now it really loads the front of the quad, and I can elevate the heels a little bit with a plate or something. Now I'm onto something completely new, and now I can continue squatting. Whereas it's actually doing something for me, where putting the bar on my back and just going up and down with 600 pounds was doing jack shit for me, other than hurting my knees at some point and pumping my lower back because of the amount of weight and load that's on it. But
if you were dumber, you would say shit like, I don't fucking squat. I don't care what it does to my knees. And that's when you start wrapping the knees up.
Mm-hmm. Well, and at the same time, I don't have a safety squat bar. Okay. Do you have a hack squat? Because it's going to load the quads very, very similar, especially when you place your feet properly. Find the foot placement and go do those. Like, there's other alternatives to doing it. Right. Do you have any machine ever created ever for legs?
Like, no. Okay, well, that sucks.
Try that. All you have is a squat rack. Well, you're pretty much fucked. Start lunging. I don't know.
Yeah. Oof. Guys, I got to get going here in about a minute or so.
It was a pleasure. Go ahead.
So, I noticed you train at Crack in Novi sometimes. Is that a habitual thing?
So my wife and I moved to Brighton, Michigan, and we started training at Crocs in Novi, and actually trained with Janae like in jiu-jitsu. And we have since installed a home gym Renaissance gym, and now we train there, and we just like hang with Janae for free time. Like we're gonna hang with her in a few weeks when we get back from our holiday travels. I will say, ever since I left that gym a few months ago, Janae's gotten like 10 times more awesome equipment. And I was like, God damn it, why didn't you have any of this shit when I was here? So it's a fucking better gym than ever. And if I didn't have my own home gym, I would absolutely continue to train there.
All right. So I was going to say, if you're doing that YouTube thing where you take a pro and you make them puke blood into a bucket or something, I sign up for the bucket. So if you ever need a victim, then I'm happy to be on the show and be humiliated.
I'm in Grand Rapids. It's 2.5 hours for me.
Well, fuck. Hey, fellas, hit me up. Hit me up, and
Yeah.
we'll do a fucking video. We'll
Sweet.
do legs together or some shit like that.
Yeah.
It's 10 minutes from Croc. I used to go there before my pro debut. Yeah.
You just signed your own death warrant.
That's right. I enjoy dying.
Excellent. There's going to be a lot of dying. Guys, I'm going to drop out. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks, Mike.
I'll chat with you
We'll
later.
have you on
Let me
again.
know. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, that was fun.
Yeah, I'll sign my death warrant. I enjoy those. Those videos are my favorite. When he takes the fucking power lifters and puts them through a bodybuilding workout, and they literally get one exercise in and they're writhing around the floor in pain. Those are my favorite ones.
Was I better about not fangirling than I have been in the past?
Yes, you were. Yeah.
I didn't make.
Well, you didn't hit on him, so there's that.
Always off camera.
So how you doing?
That was funny though. It's like, can I swear? Then 40% were.
Like, that's the only reason anybody watches this shit is because we cuss a lot.
God, stop that, Bob. Oh,
So
hey, did you notice on the most recent bro chat how they finally talked about politics with the Australia concentration camps and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like how that was the straw that broke Fuad's back. It's like that was what did it. It was like he's like, enough's enough. I can't keep my mouth shut anymore about this. And everybody's ready to sound off because like nobody. He just keeps it so clean, and that's not a clean show. But he's got like he'll have racism and shit talk every episode, but he won't talk about politics.
Well, because that's not going to get you. That's not going to get you filtered off of YouTube. That's why, right? You can't talk. There's two things you really can't talk about. You can't talk politics, and you can't talk the virus. Otherwise, you're going to end up getting demonetized. So,
yeah.
That's just. I mean, as much as he'd probably like to talk about it, he's been smart not to because. And they'll even say, guys, we can't talk politics on here. We can't talk politics because I don't want to get demonetized. He's better off putting a fucking video up of somebody else's shit and playing it and playing music in the background than he is talking politics at this point. So what's new, Todd?
Oh, I got a cold. Everyone else has COVID, but I got tested 3 times. But it's like when you get a cold, it was just like 12 to 15 hours of sleeping. It's been like a week. I'm still having a hard time breathing, even though I don't really have any other symptoms. Mm-hmm. But it's not like when I had COVID in March, but it's not as bad as other colds I've had, but it really has gotten in the way of me getting in the 5,000 calories. And thus, it's like, luckily I've been able to hold steady at 201 the whole time.
Yep.
Normally I'd lose like 10 pounds if I get sick. I look flat today, but I look sick.
I have been pushing as much food as humanly possible, and to the point where I went and bought a blender so I can start toddling my chicken shakes if necessary, because I can't physically get any more fucking food in.
Well, what I found was the price of protein did not go up, but the price of meat did, and kind of everything. So that blending chicken would be more expensive than just using whey isolate or
right. And that's what I ended up doing is I got that, and I'm like, I can't bring myself to do that, so I'll just eat as much chicken as I possibly can, and if there's still protein left that I can't get in, if that increases, I'll just blend up some whey with something that taste really good, you know, like a little Splenda in there and some ice and some almond milk or something, and make a little smoothie out of it. Something that'll be very easily palatable for me to get down to get the rest in. And if I have to use carbohydrates, I'll just use a fucking banana because that'll taste good.
What I found was that the price of like gluten-free gnocchi is up to $5 for 200 grams of gnocchi, whereas like that's absurd. That's more that's carbs that are more expensive than protein at that point. That you can get normal wheat pasta and get 300 grams worth of pasta for $1, and it's delicious. But then you're bloated and you can't get in more food. Mm-hmm. Whereas rice is the cheapest and the least bloating, but you're eating so much rice, you're just so sick of it. And if it's not jasmine, so I found that Rice Krispies would be great, but Kellogg's is out of business pretty much because it's striped. So I'm eating Malta-Meals brand crispy rice, which is like the grain bag, horse bag that you would feed bag. Like 120 grams of crispy rice is like 100 grams of carbs.
How about Rice Chex?
Rice Chex is way more expensive than crispy rice. Crispy rice is fucking cheap.
The Aldi's one that I have is like a fucking $1.50 for a box of Rice Chex. The big box. That's cheap.
I can go to Aldi's and get.
It's like crisp. It's not Rice Chex. It's crisp Rice Chex.
Rice Chex. So it's like protein powder, water over rice cereal.
Well, you get corn Chex too. Same thing. Like the corn. It's a non-gluten, so that's not going to bloat you at all. But you're still getting the same thing out of it.
Some people say that corn is pro-inflammatory.
I've never had any issues with it.
At this point, if I'm going to be miserable, I might as well be smart and miserable.
Right.
So,
well, and what I like, so what I've been doing with that blend, I put like, depending on what it is, if I cannot get a meal down, I will match the macros with whey protein isolate, a banana, and then I will fill it out with baby cereal. I'll put the baby cereal in there, mix everything up, blend it up with ice in there and everything, and I just drink the fucking smoothie, and I can get that down.
One thing I found was that like a cream of rice, Karina taught me a trick where you boil the water first and then you pour the cream of rice into the water and stir it. It's so much easier than using the microwave and having it boil over. It actually
I don't like it hot. I don't eat that hot. That's why I'll use baby cereal instead of cream of rice. So I don't like it hot. The baby cereal mixes in exactly the same way as the cream of rice, and it's cold. It's easy to eat.
I don't like it hot either. What I do is I take frozen blueberries and then mix them.
Throw it in there.
And then it cools off the cream of rice. It becomes room temperature relatively quickly.
Yeah. Well, there's no shortage of baby cereal, but it's hard finding cream of rice, which is fucking stupid.
Well, I order it from India. It's actually a staple in India, and you can get it much cheaper from India than you can buy the little orange boxes of rice. They're like $3 each for like 11 ounces.
If you can find it now, yeah.
Right, it's impossible to find. I don't know what the fuck is going on with that, but it's easier to get cream rice from India than it is from an American company right now.
Yeah, so I just started switching over to baby cereal like 6 months ago, and it works just fine because I can find every type of flavored baby cereal or regular baby cereal that I want. If I want to, however I want to make that work, and get the big, huge, go to Walmart and get the huge boxes of it and stuff, and one will pretty much last me all week. So whereas like a box of cream of rice, I'm going through that about every 3 days, right?
It's just so expensive. And what's funny is like Kuba made up an observation is like when you cheat to try to get extra calories in because you're behind, you end up fucking yourself because the fat in the cheat meal makes you not hungry for like 6 hours.
Yeah, and I don't want to eat.
I've told that to people, but it's like by the time it's time for the 6th meal, everybody's closed, so you can't have your cheat meal last because shit closes down at like 9 or 10 p.m., not like it used to be where things were open till midnight or 2 a.m. Mm-hmm. And it's really fucking frustrating. So what are you going to do? It's like you can either never cheat and have nothing but alternating chicken and rice meals and cereal and whey meals, forever, and you're basically limited to chicken, whey, and rice, which can't possibly be micronutrient appropriate. There's no micronutrients in those three things. Or you mix it up with some abnormal meals for some variety and sanity, not because you're hungry, just because you're fucking bored of eating the same garbage, but you're going to take 2 or 3 meals out of your day just because of the slow digestion time of that meal.
Well, all you could do is you could order it early, have it delivered, and like if you're doing a burger and fries, go pick it up, have them make it without like lettuce and tomato and shit on it. Just have that stuff at home. Cut up the tomatoes, put the lettuce on it and everything else. Now you have a cheeseburger that you just have to reheat.
I can make a burger at that point. If I'm
exactly. But then again, if you're gonna do that, you're better off just buying the fucking fries, right? Or if you have a fryer, you just throw the fries in the fucking deep fryer for 10 minutes and make your own hamburger and call it good. And you
don't even need to do that. You just buy the Alexa brand, potato waffle fries. A bag of those is, I think, $3.50. It's 120 carbs and 30 grams of fat.
I just take sweet potatoes and chip them up and throw them in my air fryer. That's what I do.
I do that too, but if I want to create the illusion of having a cheat meal, then I have these go-tos at the grocery store that I can buy and then make it myself. And then
you could always do too is you could always just have like another option is having frozen pizza in the refrigerator or in the freezer, making that as your last meal, as your cheat meal, and then drinking a protein shake with it to get the protein value in. And now you've got it. That's probably an optimal cheat meal at that point too, because you have extra sodium, extra fat, extra carbohydrates in there that you would need for calorie dense, and you're still going to get the protein in.
I used to do that too. What I found was the price of a CPK oven baked pizza is like $5.99 or $6.99. I could go to Hungry Howie's, which is across my street, and it's $10.99 for a larger.
Are they open at midnight?
Yeah, they are. And
okay, then you're fine.
Calories for that pizza, and I get light cheese like sauce. If I go to Little Caesars, I could get a deep dish, and that's 3,200 calories. But that'll fuck me up for 3 days. Whereas my digestion doesn't even change from the thin crust Hungry Howie's pizza. There's not enough gluten in the thin crust for my digestion to change. If I get the regular pizza, the normal crust pizza, then it's going to fuck up my digestion for at least a day.
Yeah. No, you're right.
A lot of people are like, I don't have celiac, dog. It's like, listen, if you go gluten-free for 6 weeks and you have a shit ton of bread all at once, you're going to find out how uncomfortable gluten really is. It's just that people have perpetual IBS. So they don't even know that they have IBS, that they're just used to having really painful, messy bowel movements or diarrhea or constipated or flatulent, that it's always a nightmare. And that they just live in this nightmare realm all the time.
And they don't know any different.
You're like, oh, I eat 4,000 calories. I'm like, but you go to the bathroom like 5 times a day and it's messy. So of that 4,000 calories, how much did you absorb? Like 2,500?
Yeah.
So like maybe if you ate 3,000 clean calories that were all hypoallergenic, gluten-free, sugar-free foods, you would grow faster, even though you're eating less total calories.
You grow faster and you would shit more normally, and it would only be once a day, and it would be timely. It would probably be what I found is when you get that point, it's the same time every single day, like clockwork, and that's it. And it's never messy, and it never hurts, and you don't have gas, right? And it's like, okay, this is just the way it should be. And then, like you said, go eat one thing off menu one day, and for 2 days your digestion is fucked up if you eat too much of it.
Right. And then people just live like that, and that's their life. And it's and they have no idea like what life would be more convenient if they just didn't eat like that. And that you just have to titrate it. Like Nelson made a comment that Martin can have one bagel and he's okay. He has 2 bagels and he's fucked.
He's fucked up.
And I noticed the exact same thing. As soon as he said that, if I have lox and bagel and have 2 bagels, I'm fucked. If I have lox and bagel and have 1 bagel and a protein shake, and to make up for the extra calories that I'm not getting from the bagel and the lox, just having half the food, I'm fine. Especially if it's going to be 4 hours before I have another meal. If I'm cramming the meals in every 90 minutes, then I can't have any fucking food at all. The only thing I can eat, the only thing that gets ready to go and is processed in 90 minutes with me is cream of rice or rice cereal. If I go to the Jasmine rice, I'm not going to be hungry again in 2 hours.
Yeah, I literally have no gluten right now at all. And what I'm eating, trying to slam down and trying to get all this food in. I mean, if I had any gluten at all, it wouldn't even be possible to get half of it in. There's no way, because I haven't been eating oatmeal. I've just started using the baby cereal, right? So it's cream of rice. All my meals are fucking rice or white potato, right? And I try to limit the white potato because of some of the starch and stuff in there. So where it was 12 ounces of fucking potato, I've cut it down to 6 ounces of potato and filled in the rest with rice. It's a lot of fucking food, but it's still easier to get down than all 12 ounces of potato, because what I found out was a 12 ounce of potato meal, because it's a beef and potato meal, the next one is a struggle to get in. And I either have to wait an hour extra to get it in, and that fucks up the next one after that, or I'm literally force feeding the next one to the point where I'm uncomfortable. So I've been putting more rice in that and less potato, and that's worked out okay. But there's literally no gluten anywhere in there. And if I don't even want to know what would happen right now. Like after a week of this, like I got a cheat meal coming up here this weekend. I'm debating whether I'm just going to be something that's going to be very low gluten or not, because I know that if I do pizza, if I do something with like a bun, like a burger with a bun or something where there's a lot of it, I'm going to be fucked for a day.
That's why I don't go totally gluten free. I might have one bagel with almond milk, one with almond butter. I might have, like, I will try to have gluten at least once every 2 days in a small amount, so that if I have a burger with a bun, I don't notice the bun. Or the thin crust pizza, the amount of bread in a thin crust pizza, even though it's 180 carbs, it doesn't actually seem like that much. If I can slam that whole pizza fast and I can get it in one meal, then I don't really notice too much. I lose like 4 or 5 hours off that meal. I'll have a protein shake instead of a solid food 2 hours after that, and then I'm back on track about 5 hours after that.
I would rather get the 6,000 calories in every single day than worry about getting one cheat meal a week.
Oh, for sure. But that's what I'm saying is, to me, cheat meals aren't even a psychological break.
Yeah, I don't care.
It's the concept of a de-stressor to be able to slam in enough calories quickly.
Yeah. Personally myself, I think what I'll end up doing is I'll just buy a pint of Ben & Jerry's, eat my last meal, and then eat as much of the ice cream as possible. That's my fucking cheat meal, and then that's it. And go to bed.
I heard that they've got a version that's called oat milk. That is a dairy-free version. Yeah, that's obviously what I would have to turn to if I ever got to that point, because I'll still want it, but that's $5, and I can't afford $150 a month worth of ice cream. You know, like, to me,
I'm doing one a week. I'm not going to do that much. It's ridiculous. That would be my cheat meal. Like that's my instead of getting doing a burger and fries or something that's going to fuck up my stomach real bad, or pizza that I know is going to screw me up for 2 days. This is an extra calorie meal that I need whenever I need that. I'm better off doing that, or having gummy bears or something like that, and maybe a Snickers bar with the last meal that's already there to get those calorie count up, rather than doing a whole meal.
Yeah, I would say that. What is it? A normal tub of Ben & Jerry's pint's about 1,100 calories.
Depending on which one it is, yeah.
Yeah, the frozen yogurt one, which is low calorie, low fat, is 700. Mm-hmm. But what's funny is if you get a pint of like the Twix ice cream, that's still only 700 calories. Same thing with Oreo ice cream is like 700 calories. Because I used to do a pint a day just to get extra calories in, even though I was like pretty much dairy allergic. It's like I just didn't care. I needed to get those calories in at all costs. So I would have a pizza and a pint of ice cream every 3 days, and that, you know, like after arms before legs, right? And it's like everyone knows you do not have a dirty cheat the day before legs, because then it's really uncomfortable trying to train legs. Like I hate doing that.
Mm. Well, it depends on the uncomfortable. Is it uncomfortable with the amount of pump, or is it uncomfortable with the amount of bloat in the stomach trying to get down into a squat position? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like just having unevacuated garbage in your system, and then you're compressing your core down on top of your swollen intestines. It's just not a fun feeling. It definitely takes your mind muscle connection out the window. It becomes a mind colon connection.
Yeah. You're shitting your pants at the bottom of your squats.
It's like not good. But it's so like instead, I think it's like important to do like, if there was a way to clean carb load, but basically you're having 6 meals a day that is a high carb.
They are carb loaded. Yeah,
Yeah,
right now, my whole day is a carb load right now.
Yeah, it's like, what's a cup of rice? 150 grams. So it's like I'm having 3 cups of rice and 5 ounces of uncooked meat 6 times a day. That's impossible. How would anyone get that done? But that's what it breaks down to, is you got like a Roman Fritz diet and you're 100 pounds lighter than the dude.
Right now, most of my meals are 8 ounces of cooked protein with 400 grams of rice and some small trace amounts of fat pushed in there. That's a lot of food, dude. That's 400 grams of fucking rice is a mound like this.
I mean that comes out to be 8 ounces of cooked meat. That's 64 grams of protein. Mm-hmm. Then you get 400 grams of rice. That's like 100.
It's 120 grams of carbs.
Yeah, so that therefore you're really looking at 80 grams of protein, because 10% of your carbs and rice are rice. Protein. Yep. So you're having an 80-120 meal. That ends up being an 800 calorie meal, not counting fat. 800 calories 6 times a day, that's 480 calories. If you added some oil to that rice so that it digests properly, then it's going to slow down all those meals, but you'd add in a lot more food.
Right. No, like that's pretty much everything that I'm getting in for all of my meals right now. On top of that, there's vegetables in there too and stuff for for fiber and vitamins and everything else. And then you've got, so that's 6 there. But then on my training days, it's more whey protein with cream of rice or baby cereal and banana post training to get glycogen reloaded and everything else. So it's like, you're at 6,000 calories in a heartbeat before you know it, and struggling to get all of it in. And when I don't have that much of an appetite anyway, so anything over 4 is a struggle for me. I've got to literally force feed, and I've got to push it up very slowly to get to this point. So now I don't know if I can get any more in. I told Justin this last week. I was like, I physically cannot eat anymore. And I don't like to say that, but I'm saying I physically can't eat anymore. So I'm going to have to start drinking calories. That's the only way. And I may have to turn to and stuff, slamming a Sprite or something, or a couple of Sprites before bed on that last meal in order to get the calories in. If we need to add extra calories, it's going to have to be in the last meal. So I've got 6 to 8 hours to sleep it off so that I can get up and eat again.
I'm so cheap, I wouldn't even do that. What I would do is I would just take Domino sugar and scoop 30 grams of sugar and throw it in a protein shake.
And I can do that
then add sugar to my protein shakes rather than spending money on Sprite, because Coca-Cola hates white people. Like, I'm not even money anymore.
No, I mean that's another one too. I mean, if the amount of carbonation and it starts fucking with my stomach, then I'll have to do that. I'll just do the sugar route and do that. So dextrose powder. I could just throw that. Would probably be a better option yet, is to throw dextrose in there, or because dextrose is fucking dirt cheap too. I mean, it's dirt cheap.
I mean, I go with Domino sugar sucralose because it's sweeter, but I could dextrose. But like I had Subway because I was out. It's a reasonable thing. It's expensive, so that's why it's a downside. $16 for 100 carbs and 80 grams of protein. Yeah. But I ended up getting the drink, and instead of having Coke or Diet Coke, caffeine, because it's at the point where if I have one Diet Coke, I am not going to be able, or Diet Pepsi, I'm not going to be able to sleep for like 4 or 5 hours longer than usual. Like I'll be going to bed at 3 a.m. as opposed to midnight if I have one serving of caffeine, even 30 milligrams now. So like I made it with half vitamin water and half Fanta. And I didn't think Fanta had any caffeine, but I was up till 5 a.m. Like 9 hours later, when I went to bed, I still laid there for 5 hours, unable to sleep.
Could have used that the other day because, like I said, I got up at 3 o'clock on Wednesday and I didn't go to sleep until 8:30 this morning.
It's crazy how effective caffeine is if you never have it. It's like how drugs.
What's funny is that I have the only soda I've really been drinking is very, very low caffeine. Like right now, there's very little in Diet Dr. Pepper. So, and I'm just the first one I've had in days. But I'm like the sugar-free root beer. There's no caffeine in that, right? Other than that, it's water that I drink. I haven't been drinking coffee at all. The only other caffeine I get is from a pre-workout, and I've been limiting that too. Because I just don't, I'm finding that I sleep better, and especially working at night and stuff, I'm sleeping way better during the day without any caffeine. It's easy for me to go to sleep. I crash right out, and then I can sleep 6 hours really, really hard. And if I need a nap later on, I do. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm limiting the caffeine.
I mean, I had to cut out the pre-workout because I couldn't figure out what was going wrong. And I was reduced my pre-workout level to 1/8 of a scoop. And I was getting great workouts, but I was not sleeping. And as soon as I cut out all pre-workout, all caffeine, no caffeine at all, then I was like, at this point, if I take 10 grams of dark chocolate, not like dark chocolate, cocoa, not even dark chocolate, I think 10 grams of cocoa and mix it in with cream of rice or oatmeal, I will be so hyper at the gym that like the one time I was super tired and I had half a scoop of Fenris, the first set of the day was adductor. I tore my groin. Like it made me so much stronger. And I guess I'm so fragile. I ripped my groin from using my own pre-workout. That's how strong that shit is. I used a half a scoop of Fenris Fury and ripped my groin open. It's like I was like, I don't know how fucking people do a whole scoop of this shit. That's fucking nuts.
Or two.
I've never met anyone who admitted to using 2, except once Brittany said that she accidentally had 2 scoops, and she was like on FaceTiming me and cleaning the inside of her car at 3 a.m. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, I don't know. I just can't stop moving. I was like, how many scoops of pre-workout did you have? And she's like, shut up. I was like, how many? She's like, I had 2 in a Monster. I was like,
well, yeah, I mean, there's 800 milligrams of caffeine right there.
I'm like, you wake up at 11 p.m. to go to work, and then you're at work, and you're in the parking lot hearing voices and hiding in your car, and then you get bored hiding in your car, and you're cleaning the inside of your car with Windex at 2 a.m. I was like, how does that not make sense? You overdid it with the stimulant.
Well, that is what I did here because I had to be awake last night. Is I took a scoop of Fenris before I went to work, and I was up until 8:30 in the morning, wide awake. I finally crashed out. I mean, I sat on the couch and ate, and then I started watching TV, and I crashed out and woke up at 10:30 and said, "Okay, I'm going to bed now." But yeah, that got me, and this was me before that. Like this is me trying to stay awake. Because I had been up since, the day before 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had tried to sleep yesterday, but I couldn't do it because of what was going on. And then last night, I'm like, I got to make it through work somehow. Well, we haven't done this in a while. Fenris, drink. And it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and this is me, wide awake.
I don't even know what would fucking happen. I don't even know what would happen if I did a whole scoop of Fenris. Or like 3 caps of Wrath and a half a scoop of Fenris. That would just scare the fuck out of me. I would be a different person.
3 caps, I'm ripped for 2 days.
No, it's like anyone I don't know a single person that takes the full serving size of, and people are like, why do you make this shit so strong? I'm like, I use the clinically proven dose of every ingredient. I don't turn them down because I'm using them in a synergistic formula. I'm just like pushing the envelope on every ingredient and then using them just right. And you don't need to use the maximum dose. It's like just because the barbell loads 800 pounds doesn't mean you should put 800 pounds
on there. You could probably get away with 4 and it's going to do just as good.
Or you use 100 with a 9-second rep for 10 reps and do that 100 pounds for 90 seconds while feeling the muscle.
Oh, man. All right. I'm going to go eat and then I'm going to go train back.
I'm hungry and tired at the same time, and I just woke up.
I might actually eat, take a nap, and then go train back because I'm still tired from the last 2 days. So,
dude, every time I can't drag myself out of bed, like I'm like, oh, it's 4:24, and I'm supposed to be at the gym at 5. I cannot get out of bed. If I go lift, it's gonna suck, or I'm gonna hurt myself, or I'm gonna get sick.
Mm-hmm.
I do not want to get out of bed. If I just stay in bed, I'll wake up 3 hours later and feel great, and I can go to the gym and get a phenomenal workout.
Yeah. I haven't been having any issues like sleeping on this schedule. It's usually I'm in bed by 8 o'clock and I'm awake at 3. If there's cardio due, I do the cardio, then I eat again, then I go to the gym, then I come home. My food is already made because in between the first two eatings, I got all the food made for the night that I need. It's already in the fridge and ready to go. So I can come home at that point. I can eat my post-workout and I can lay down and take a nap for an hour and I'm refreshed and ready to go for the whole night. If I don't get that nap in, then I'll be a little bit extra tired throughout I'll start getting tired and earlier. But the only time I've had to sleep longer is on the weekends when I don't have to go to work. And I think it's just my body saying, okay, I don't have to work. Then I'll cat nap more, right? At night, I'll actually, because I'm not moving around, I'll cat nap at night for an hour or so. Then I'm tired. But for the most part, I've been getting decent enough sleep during the day. So I haven't been like I was before where I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't sleep enough working at night. I just couldn't do it.
Oh my God. It's so fucking weird. I'll wake up, I'll do my morning ritual, do my morning cardio, have a meal, lay down, take a nap. Wake up, go to the gym, come home, and then I'll eat, and then I'll take another nap. So I'll get, people don't realize, I sleep 8 to 10 hours, sometimes 12, but I also have 2 or 3 naps that day. 18 hours a day. And for those 2 years when I made all that progress, I was sleeping 12 to 18 hours every day.
I remember.
And I was lifting Monday, Wednesday, Friday from midnight until 3 a.m. And the whole rest of the week, I did nothing but sleep.
Sleep and eat.
That's all I did. And it was so lonely. I didn't even know I was lonely. I was so lonely. It was so lonely for from December of 2018 until I got my pro card. I did not do anything the entire time.
Except sleep, eat, and train.
Sleep and eat. I think I had 3 days in that whole 3-year period. No, 5. 5 dates in that whole period for 3 years. Did nothing but sleep, eat, and train. Nothing. Yeah. I saw Bo, the front desk guy at the gym. I saw you on my podcast, on our podcast. I saw my Dungeons and Dragons group, usually on Skype because they're afraid of getting COVID. Because I'm a typhoid Mary because I go to the gym where apparently all the disease. And I had 5 dates in that 3-year period. And that was it for and I won the Michigan, won my class twice at Masters Nationals, technically won my class twice at North American by doing nothing but sleeping, eating, and training, and having
sleep, eat, train.
control.
Yeah, that's great though.
Me and my dog were so close. Now he just barely talks to me.
Yeah.
He came in my room. He didn't even say hi to me. He just looked around the floor for some like food, and then got bored and left. I was like, "You're not even get to say hi to me." He looked over and looked at me and just chuffed and walked away. He's like, "Nah,
I might get a dog, actually, I think. I don't really have anything. I was looking at rescue dogs because I don't want anything I have to train because I don't have the patience to do it. So I was looking at rescue dogs that are already like, potty trained and stuff, just something a little older that will just be like me and just lay around and do nothing.
Oh, that's what my dog does. My dog,
and okay with doing it, right?
My dog makes me look hardworking.
That's what I want. I want a dog that just sleeps, right?
Dog I've ever met. To do shit.
I just want a dog that when I lay here, it lays right here with me and does nothing, right?
Just nothing. Mm-hmm. He doesn't do shit.
All right, man. I'm gonna eat, and then I'm gonna go to the gym at some point here.
All right. So, have a good lift.
All right, we'll see you.
Bye-bye.